This is a true event that happened in 1975 in the quiet town of Amityville, New York. The house looked peaceful from the outside, but inside, something evil was waiting. Voices whispered through the walls, and an unseen presence watched them while they slept. This is the terrifying story, told from George Lutz's point of view. Now let's get started. The first time I saw the house, 112 Ocean Avenue, it looked like a dream come true. A 2.5-story Dutch colonial with white siding, black shutters, and that iconic gambrel roof. The arched windows on the top floor almost looked like eyes peering down at us, as if the house itself were watching. It was quiet that day, too quiet. The street was empty, not even the sound of birds in the trees, but I ignored that. We were desperate for a fresh start. Kathy and I had just gotten married. We had 3 kids, Danny, Chris, and little Missy, and we needed space. A home to build memories in. The real estate agent hesitated before we even stepped inside. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice tight. The previous family, they were murdered here. All 6 of them, the DeFeos. I knew the story. Ronald DeFeo Jr. had shot his parents and 4 siblings in their sleep. I had read every article. It was disturbing, but the logical part of me thought, this is just a house. Bricks and wood. A place can't be evil. Kathy looked uneasy, but I squeezed her hand. "We're not superstitious," I told the agent. "We're not afraid." That's how we signed the papers. That's how we moved in on December 18th. It snowed gently that morning, a white sheet covering the lawn like a fresh start. The kids ran through the halls, yelling with joy over who got which bedroom. Kathy was glowing. Her dream of a real home was finally coming true. We carried in boxes, laid out furniture, and tried to shake the feeling that we were being watched. I told myself it was just my imagination, or maybe the nerves of moving. But when I stepped into the house for the first time as its owner, something in my gut twisted. It was cold inside. Not just winter cold. It was hollow. Like walking into a room after an argument, when the air still holds onto the emotion. Still, we settled in. That first evening, we lit a fire in the living room. The flames were warm, and the kids huddled close while Kathy unpacked the kitchen. We drank hot cocoa and tried to ignore the fact that the dog, Harry, refused to come inside. He stayed near the boathouse, tail low, whining at the wind. That night, I woke up at 3:15 a.m. sharp. No sound, just the silence pressing against my ears. I looked around, expecting something, anything, to explain why I was awake. The room was freezing. I pulled the blanket tighter and looked at the window, frost on the glass. My breath clouded in front of me. Downstairs, I heard a soft growl. I got up and followed the sound. Harry was pacing by the front door, growling deep in his throat. His hackles were raised. He was staring at the door like someone was on the other side. I flipped the porch light on. Nothing. The snow was untouched. I opened the door, just cold wind and quiet. Harry backed away, whining now. I shut the door slowly, locking it. In the morning, the whole house felt colder, even with the furnace on. I checked the thermostat, 72 degrees, but Kathy stood by the stove, rubbing her arms. The kids complained their rooms were freezing. I went down to the basement to check the heating system. Everything looked fine. I adjusted a few valves, tightened a knob, and went back upstairs. Still cold. Kathy called me upstairs an hour later. "George, come here." I climbed the stairs and followed her voice into the small extra room upstairs. We hadn't assigned a purpose to it yet. It was too small for a bedroom. When I stepped in, my skin crawled. Flies. Hundreds of them. Crawling across the windows, buzzing around the ceiling light, coating the corners. It was the middle of December. We spent the next hour swatting them, opening the window to air out the room. The cold air rushed in, but the flies didn't leave. If anything, they got more agitated. Kathy started to cry. I had no explanation. The next day, they were gone. Not a single one remained. No bodies, no buzzing. Just a perfectly clean room like nothing had ever happened. Later that week, strange smells began creeping into the house. One day, it was the smell of sewage in the kitchen. Rotting perfume in the hallway upstairs. The same black ooze leaked from the kitchen sink. No explanation. One night, while brushing my teeth in the downstairs bathroom, I noticed thick black slime oozing from the toilet. It smelled foul, like burnt oil mixed with something rotten. I flushed it, but the next morning, the same black ooze leaked from the kitchen sink. Then came the cold spots. Whole rooms would suddenly drop in temperature, even with the heat on full blast. I would walk from the hallway into a freezing zone like stepping into a walk-in freezer. The worst was the master bedroom and the sewing room. Then came the third night. I woke again at exactly 3:15 a.m. But this time, there was more than just silence. I heard whispers. Not words, just soft, frantic murmurs, like dozens of voices speaking over each other, just on the edge of understanding. I sat up. Kathy was still asleep beside me. I got out of bed and walked the hallway. The whispering led me to the sewing room. I reached for the doorknob, and my hand froze. The air on the other side felt thick and electric. I pushed the door open. Nothing. The room was empty. But I knew something had just been there. Missy began talking about her new friend, Jody. Kathy was putting away laundry when Missy pointed to the window. "There she is," Missy whispered. "Jody. She's waiting for me." Kathy looked out and saw them. Two glowing red eyes staring in through the window, hovering several feet above the ground. She screamed. By the time I got there, there was nothing. Missy sat in bed, smiling. "Jody says you scared her," she giggled, hugging her doll. "She's hiding now." Kathy knelt beside her. "Where does Jody come from, Missy?" Missy tilted her head. "From the closet sometimes, and sometimes from the wall. But she mostly likes the window. Is Jody a girl?" Missy thought for a moment. "She's a pig, but she talks like a girl. She says she used to live here, before the bad man came." Kathy's face went pale. I felt it too, that dread crawling under your skin when you know a child is saying something that should be impossible. That night, I stayed awake. I sat at the edge of our bed, staring out into the hallway. At 3:15, I felt the house shift. Not literally, but like something moved within it, like the air grew aware. A sudden bang echoed from downstairs. I ran down. The front door was wide open. Snow had blown in across the carpet. Harry barked from the kitchen, his leash tangled in the chair legs. The wind howled in from the porch. I slammed the door shut and locked it again, checking every other window and door. Every lock had been undone. Kathy called in a priest the next day. He came quietly, walking through the house with a small satchel and a bottle of holy water. He paused near the stairs. "Someone said something to me," he whispered. "Upstairs." "There's no one up there," I said. He climbed the stairs, reached the sewing room, and began to bless it. A moment later, he staggered out, coughing. "What happened?" Kathy asked. He looked shaken. I heard it clearly. A voice, deep, angry. It said, "Get out." After the priest left and refused to come back, something in me changed. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew something unnatural was happening. The house was alive, watching, reacting. I stopped shaving. I hardly ate. I spent most of my time tending the fire, even when it didn't need tending. I felt cold all the time, like my bones had soaked up the icy breath of the house. The kids whispered that I looked different, my eyes sunken, my face hollow. Kathy tried to talk to me, but I barely responded. I wasn't myself, and the nights were getting worse. I woke again at 3:15 a.m., as always. But this time, I wasn't alone. I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, heavy, deliberate. I got out of bed and grabbed the axe I kept in the closet. I opened the door quietly and peeked out. No one was there. But the footsteps continued. The sound of heavy breathing and dragging footsteps echoed from inside the structure of the house itself. I followed it down the hallway, past the kids' rooms. They were all fast asleep, unaware of the movement happening behind the walls that sheltered them. I ended up in the sewing room. The door creaked open on its own. The room was ice cold. My breath fogged instantly, and something stood in the corner. A shadow. Tall, lanky, stretching up to the ceiling with no face. Just a presence, darker than the rest of the room. It pulsed like it was breathing. It moved toward me. I slammed the door and ran. Back in our bedroom, I shook Kathy awake. She looked at me, really looked, and her eyes filled with terror. "You look wrong," she whispered. "What do you mean? Your face, your eyes." "George, they're not your eyes." She turned on the lamp, but the bulb popped instantly. Darkness swallowed the room again. Downstairs, Harry began barking frantically, then whimpering, then silence. We rushed down and found him in the kitchen, cowering in the corner. He had chewed through his leash and was trying to squeeze into the cupboard under the sink. Kathy knelt beside him, stroking his fur. "Something's wrong with this place. We need help." I nodded, but there was no help coming. That morning, the boys complained about a weird draft in their bedroom. We pulled their bed away from the wall and found something behind it, a small door. We'd never seen it before. The wallpaper covered it perfectly, but it was clear the door had been there a long time. I opened it slowly. Behind it was a tiny room, maybe 4 feet square, no windows. The walls were painted red. The smell hit us instantly, like rot and sulfur. Missy peeked around the corner. "Jody says that's her room," she whispered. "The one in the walls." Kathy pulled her away, horrified. I crawled inside. The walls weren't just red, they were bleeding, oozing a thick, sticky substance that coated my hands. I heard voices again, whispers, then laughter. I backed out, slamming the tiny door shut. We later found out from the local priest that the room was called the Red Room. The DeFeos never mentioned it, but the church believed it was a site of occult activity. Some even said it predated the house itself. Things escalated. Kathy began waking up with scratches down her back. Long, deep welts like she had been clawed by something with talons. One night, I woke to find her floating above the bed. Her body stiff, eyes rolled back. She thrashed in the air as if fighting something invisible. I leapt up and grabbed her, pulling her down. As soon as I touched her, the bed slammed back down to the floor. She screamed for minutes, unable to stop. That morning, bruises covered her arms, finger-shaped bruises. We tried to get out of the house. But every time we left, something called us back. The house would whisper at night, "Come back. Don't leave, we're not finished." One night, we fled in the middle of the night after an especially violent episode. Doors slamming, windows shattering, objects flying across the room. When we reached the car, Missy turned to the house and waved. "Bye, Jody," she said. "She's sad we're leaving." We never returned. Later investigations revealed the house was built on land once used by the Shinnecock tribe to house the sick and dying, and buried deeper in the foundation were signs of satanic rituals from colonial times. To this day, I don't know what was real and what was madness, but I know what we experienced in that house. It changed us forever, and something still lives at 112 Ocean Avenue, something that doesn't like to be disturbed.